it doesn't have to be Silicon Valley, it can be anywhere, but how all of you guys got together, were able to write this book and describe how you're impacting what means something to you.
Welcome to She Invests. Join us every week for conversations focused on the growing number of female angel investors, the real unicorns. You'll hear from existing female angel investors, VCs, and fund managers on their investment thesis. From deal flow to exits, they will share the best practices that contribute to their success. Female angel investors will be equipped with the tools and resources to confidently activate their capital in order to make an impact in their community and the global economy. With your host, active angel investor and founder of Hera Angels, Dr. Sylvia Ma.
Welcome to the podcast, She Invests, and today we have a phenomenal angel investor and an author on the line, and we're so excited to have her as part of an ecosystem builder, and we'll talk more about that later. But Suzanne Andrews is a mother, investor, and global connector. She is an angel investor, and she focuses her investments on women-owned positive social impact companies with a particular interest in the fair fashion industry. Previously, as a director at the Anita Borg Institute, Suzanne supported the Tech Women program, bringing technical women leaders from the Middle East and North Africa to the United States for partnerships with Silicon Valley Women. From this experience, she learned about the power and opportunity in her dream of a global women's network of investors and entrepreneurs. Suzanne also writes about women's startup culture, investigating the possibilities for disruption now that there are more women investors available to support previously underfunded high-impact women entrepreneurs. She spent 10 years as a software engineer at Apple, has been a midwife, assistant, and doula, and is a proud mom to 2 children. So Suzanne has a BA in computer science from Brown University. So welcome to the podcast, Suzanne.
Thank you, Sylvia. I'm so happy to be here. We always have such great collaborations with you and Hera Labs and Hera Angels. So it's great to take another step together.
That is awesome.
Congratulations on your new podcast series.
Thank you so much. Love always talking to you too about impact, about disruption. We talk a lot about those things. So would love to just even dive into first that book, Impact with Wings. So Suzanne, you went together with a couple of female angel investors. So it's great to have a group of women to really impart their wisdom onto the innovation ecosystem and produce this awesome book. I always refer back to it saying, okay, what would they do or what are they saying? And so I love that it's stories to inspire and mobilize women, angel investors, and entrepreneurs. So can you give us a little bit of an idea of how the genesis of this book happened and anything about how that came apart together and about that group of women?
Sure, I'd be happy to. There's a group of us. There were 6 of us actually co-authors that pulled that book together, and then we do have some other contributing authors. But the 6 of us met because we took the Pipeline Angels Bootcamp together, as you know. So we were all just curious about what is this angel investing thing and how can we support women entrepreneurs that are underfunded and maybe this is a way to use our money to impact the direction of the world. So we took this class together and it's a 5 to 6 month experience. You meet a couple of times a month and the class walks you through the whole experience of your first investments. We had applications from 70 women-run social impact companies. We narrowed that down to 7 or 8 to come pitch to us. And then we narrowed that down to 3 or 4 to do deep due diligence. And then as a class, we chose one to invest in. So we got to experience angel investing firsthand, learn by doing. We had a lot of mentors that came to see us. So we found it was a great experience. Sylvia, I don't know if you experience when you write that check, there's a definite high to it. It's a different kind of feeling. I mean, women work their butts off to change the world. We work so hard in our nonprofit organizations, our volunteer work, our children's schools. But there's something about, I think we all kind of had that high about bringing the power of our money. And we just looked at each other and said, like, why don't more women do this? That time, angel investors were 11% women or 13% women or something like that. So we decided that we would write a book because we just felt like we need to get the word out. We think the reason women aren't angel investing is because it's not on their radar. For some reason, it's just missing. Like even women deep in Silicon Valley where we live whose husbands are doing lots of angel investing, it never occurs to them to do it. So we really just wanted to get the word out. And that's why we wrote the book, Impact with Wings. And it's not a heavy-duty how-to angel invest, although we have some great contributions from Susan Preston and others that give some background in that area. But it's really our personal stories of why is this something that women should consider? Why is this a powerful and meaningful thing to engage in? And we each of us co-authors had sort of our different perspectives because we were all in sort of different transition periods of our life. So that's really what that book is about. And it is the first book. As you and I know, there's more coming, but there is a first book about angel investing targeted toward women. So from that sense, it's historic, and it's been an exciting project to be involved in.
Wonderful. So when you guys went through Pipeline Angels, and that's the boot camp that you're speaking of, how did that feel about coming together as a group? I know the high of writing that first check, but also that high of working together collaboratively in that boot camp that allowed you to work collaboratively in this book. So collaboration is very important to women, and that's how we can possibly make more of an impact, correct?
That was our experience. I think just because we were embarking on this journey, honestly, we were all quite nervous in the beginning, and we came through it together, and we really had a great connection from doing that work. And I think that women also like doing projects together. We kind of bond that way more so than maybe, I don't know, on the golf course or whatever. We bond by like working on something and feeling like we're getting something done together. So we definitely bonded as a group. I mean, I'm sure every class has their different dynamics, but that really, it was a great launching pad for us to do Wingpact, because that was a process. We all wrote a section, and we had an editor and a publisher, and had to figure out, everything about launching a book and getting it together, and figure out how are we going to make our disparate stories into a whole. So that collaboration and teamwork was definitely one of the high points of the Pipeline experience, and also the Wingpact book writing. And we support each other, as I think all women really need other supportive women to say, you can do it, you can do it. If one person said, I can't write a book, we're like, yes, you can, and you will, so, and we'll help you. That's been a very powerful force for me to have that circle of women.
And that circle of women is Wingpact, correct? And you guys are located in Silicon Valley. And how many ladies are loosely associated with Wingpact?
Well, there's 6 of us that are co-authors. And then, as you and I were discussing a few minutes ago, it's sort of evolving as we move forward. And some people are moving off to work on more of their own projects. And most of us have a lot of things going on. So we're sort of figuring out, and people have just had different roles, at different times. And it's definitely not a hierarchy. It's definitely been sort of a collaborative circle where we're actually kind of figuring out our own structures as we go forward. So there were, 6 co-authors. There's probably 3 or 4 of us really looking at it now. It's not a very strict thing.
Wonderful. And I think that's what we've seen in Cara Angels. It's collaborative. We give great feedback to the entrepreneurs, and then come together to do good things. And the good thing that Wingpact did was the Impact with Wings. So let's dive in a little bit into the chapter that you wrote and about what you value of that angel entrepreneur relationship. So how do you feel about that? Coming from an angel investment perspective, what can angels do to help that angel entrepreneur relationship?
What I wrote about in my chapter, and again, each woman, contributing author, had her own sort of perspective, but as I started to get involved in angel investing and think about angel investing, I got very excited because I felt like we could really have an opportunity to build business culture that works for women. It's a little frustrating to me sometimes to see women in the past, the resources for women entrepreneurs around funding have really been teaching them how to pitch to men. And there's a lot of emphasis on learning to pitch, and a lot of emphasis on learning to pitch to the people that were actually funding the companies, which were typically men. And, that's great. It's just that there's some cultural differences between men and women. And if you could sometimes be pitching to women, it might change your experience of business, and it might give us an opportunity to say, okay, what do we like how the mainstream male-dominated establishment does in their investing, and what do we maybe want to change that would help us as women really feel like we're thriving in our business lives? So that was what I wrote about. It's an opportunity to relook at how we really want to do things. The other half of your question was about how can angels then help advance their entrepreneurs once they've made the investment. As you know, there's most angels One of the reasons that we invest directly in companies is because there is that relationship that's really fun. I mean, being an angel investor is fun because you get to meet and see all these entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are always really passionate. They have great ideas. They're changing the world. They're thinking up new things that I think, gosh, I would have never thought of that. So part of the fun of angel investing is working with those inspiring people and having an opportunity to enable people that we really believe in. And so, once we make an investment, we want to help those entrepreneurs as much as we can to be successful. And I don't know, I actually had an opportunity to interview for the book entrepreneurs. And one of my questions was just that. Once the investment has been made, are women investors bringing different things to the table than the male investors? Is that kind of what you're asking about?
No, I mean, that is one part of it is, as angel investors, what do we bring to the table for that entrepreneur that really enables that entrepreneur to be successful?
Entrepreneurs that I interviewed said, their angel investors are bringing their networks, they're bringing their industry expertise, they're bringing, many angel investors have founded companies and been involved in a lot of companies, so they just bring their expertise in building new companies. And women and men both bring that. It was kind of what I learned. There isn't really a huge difference. It's just nice for women entrepreneurs to have a diverse team of angels supporting them.
I love that because diversity does mean diversity of thought, diversity of leadership training, of mentoring. You get different ideas. So, in going back to Wingpact, it is in your book that Wingpact has an investment thesis and says you are driven by 5 core values: influence, inspire, innovate, invest, and impact. So can we dive into any of those about, why influence is so important, why inspire, why innovate, why invest? Of course, we know that, and why impact.
Kind of has to do with what I was saying before, that impact thing and then that innovate thing, where we as women have worked, we put our, sweat equity into a lot of projects. But when we bring the investing in, then it's a different level of impact. It's an opportunity, like I said, to impact not just this company, but business culture in general. So each of the Wingpact angel investors have different things they kind of like to invest in, but we all love to invest in women, and we all love to invest in things that we like the direction that those companies are leading the world, whether you want to call it strictly social impact or not. When you're an angel, and one of the exciting things about being an angel investor is entrepreneurs are shaping the direction of the future, right? They have all these new ideas. They're addressing all these amazing global problems. So who decides which ideas move forward in the marketplace? It's really the investors, because if an entrepreneur doesn't get funded, then her idea is not going to move forward. And not all entrepreneurs do get funded. Not all entrepreneurs should get funded. When you're in that position as an investor at any level of the investment chain, but right now we're talking about angels in the early stage, you're really helping to define the future, because you're picking which ideas and which solutions are going to move forward in the marketplace. So that's pretty high impact.
I love that. And also about influence. So influencing the community that we're growing and the global economy is, I know, something that we've talked a lot about over the years. And how does that impact communities? We've talked a lot about how female founders really make that impact in the community because they're building, let's say, a neat, innovative product that actually makes an impact into her community, or a product or service. How has that, your dollars and your investment, helped that?
Businesses are backbones of communities in many ways. And one of the areas I'm also interested in is, actually angel investing, it focuses on a pretty narrow segment of business. There's a whole range of businesses of all sizes in all of our communities. And for equity investment, like angels and venture capitalists do, those are looking for companies that are going to be high growth and probably grow to a global scale, which is great because those companies generate a lot of wealth, they create a lot of jobs, they make a lot of changes. At the same time, there's a whole range of businesses in our communities that maybe are not going to have that huge exponential growth, but have the opportunity to support a family or multiple families, or make a difference in a local community with, could be hundreds of jobs still. But it's so I've started looking at that more. I think there's investment opportunities in there because capital, small business loans and capital available for those smaller, not as high growth businesses is still, there's a lack of that capital. There's a definite lack. And especially when we start to look at underserved groups that have historically kind of been left out of economic access to banking, access to credit, there's a huge need for capital for all of these businesses. So I think there's an opportunity still for women to fund women, or women to fund whoever, or anybody to fund anybody. But I think, as you said, women are very collaborative, they're very community oriented, and I think women, we like that relationship building of knowing who we're investing in, and there's a whole range of opportunities that we can look at that would be more like a debt instrument or revenue share or other combinations of instruments. So, that couldn't have a lot of impact on local communities and national economies and that sort of thing.
So that collaborative and community building also creates culture. And I love how you say that you are an ecosystem builder.
Mm-hmm.
Culture and ecosystem building is very nebulous. What do you think that angel investors, if they are individuals in a group, can do to, like what you do, is to build that ecosystem? So let's break that up a little bit. It's like, what do you do to build the ecosystem? And then we can go into later about how does everybody build an ecosystem in wherever they are.
I think, one of the things that I enjoy doing and that I try to do is just to get ideas out there. So like what we're doing today, we're creating content for people to learn more about women angel investors, putting role models out there. We had the book. I speak. I've had the opportunity to moderate panels at your HERA summit. We have actually, since the time we had the idea to write the book, which has been, a couple of years now, the ecosystem for women angels has exploded, and we're up. I just saw Jerry Stengel wrote in Forbes yesterday that it's at 26% women are angel investors. So it's kind of that thought leadership that we're doing and saying, look, this is how it could look. This is what you could do. And content creation, writing, speaking, collaborating with other organizations, talking about, are you including women and all groups in your programs or whatever. So that's kind of what I see as my role, a lot of trying to hold a little bit of that visionary role to get people thinking about what could be.
And through your speaking and panelists, you do such a great job in having that deep conversation. What has come out of it? Have you turned the communication around? Have we changed any equations in the investment field?
I think women, it feels like it's on the radar now a lot more. And we had, last year we had a lot of book events around the country to celebrate the launch of our book. And it just feels like when I first started the book and I would talk to women about it, I would get sort of this blank look, like they'd never really heard of angel investing. But my sense is that everybody wants to know about it. Like they've heard of it and they've heard that it's cool, but they don't understand. So there's a lot of, at women's leadership conferences like the NABO organization in Sacramento, I've been up there, and that's not strictly like an entrepreneurship conference, but it's a women business owners conference, and they all want to know, like, what is this angel investing? How could I get angel funding? So there's a high sense, and maybe you do too, there's an excitement. There is an awareness, like we're accomplishing in certain groups, maybe not in all groups, but I'm here in Silicon Valley. It might be a little bit biased, but there is an awareness, and it's like a sense of a hunger and an excitement to learn more. That's sort of our next step, is to continue building the awareness. But also, I talk a lot with people about okay, what kind of funding might your company need? Because angel funding is not appropriate for everyone. And so those are the questions that people really want to understand. Like, how does this relate to me? How can I get involved? So it's an exciting time. And I see also, you see too, lots of new training programs for women, new models that women are building. The CEO model, the Learn by Doing model that started with the Rising Tide is now branching off in multiple directions. So every week I hear from women who have some new idea about how about if we did it this way, or how about if we did it that way? That might work better for our women entrepreneurs. So I see a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity.
So the second part of the question, and I love everything that you talked about yourself. If an angel investor is listening to this podcast, what can she do to build her ecosystem? Because I found between you and me is that we build locally, and then we collaborate nationally and globally. What can she do, maybe a couple of steps, so that she can really think about how can she make that impact and then be that ecosystem builder?
Well, I mean, I would just say to get out there, I think get out there and speak. I mean, we've also talked in the past, sometimes it's hard to find other women angel investors, or the entrepreneurs say it's hard to find, but if you can find some other angels or women angels that you can support each other, that's great. But there's just, I think in most major cities there, and even there's online stuff, there's lots of opportunities to be on panels and show up. And I would encourage women to do that. I think it's very easy to think, oh, I don't have the experience, we always think that those other people up on the panels must know more than we do, but really they don't. I mean, it's early. It's a brand new ecosystem and we're all learning. And again, this is where my Wingpact sisters have encouraged me when I've gotten an offer and I email them and say, well, I don't know if I'm qualified for this, and they encourage me and they say, go for it. You can absolutely do that. So go speak, blog, write, put your ideas out there, talk to your friends about what you're doing, and encourage each other to do all that.
I love that about writing, because I encourage people to even just write on LinkedIn, because sometimes that blog is something that's overwhelming for somebody. But you can you can even write on LinkedIn as a simple article and be able to share that with people. And then you get that community saying, oh, I'm an angel investor too in your area. And then you can go out to coffee and talk about what your investment portfolio is like. Or if you're starting off and saying, I want to do my first investment, how do I do this?
Yeah. And I encourage people to blog too, because, oftentimes I talk to people, particularly women, it's just who I happen to end up, hanging out with, and they have great new ideas. And I think to myself, or they say they should write a book, and then they want to know, how did I write a book? And I actually tell people to just start blogging, whether you post it or not, because I feel like if you blogged once a month for a year, by the end of the year, you would probably have a book. Anybody can get their ideas out there. And it's important.
I love that. And another thing that I personally do, and I know that probably you do with some of your angels, is just going out to coffee with another female angel investor that you've met at a conference.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Networking a lot these days. So
we talk a lot about investment thesis from different perspectives. What is your personal investment thesis, and why do you invest personally?
I invest for some of those reasons that I already talked about, because I feel like it's a powerful way to impact the direction of the future. And I think also, as women own more than 50% of the personal financial resources in the country. And yet we're at 11%, but now we're up to 26%, which is a lot better, but it's still less than half of angel investors. I mean, women are active in philanthropy, but I feel like there's a missed opportunity for women to actually wield their capital powerfully. Want to be part of that movement, to have women discuss and think about and encourage each other, think about how can we use this asset that we have, this resource that we have, more powerfully to earn money for ourselves at the same time, but also just really to have our voices or to have our values implemented in the way the world runs in the future. How can we bring our money to that? So I invest because I want to have my voice at the table. I want to have an impact on the direction of the future. And I want women to have that impact, and all groups to have that impact. I like to invest in women and underrepresented entrepreneurs. And I like to invest just in projects that I can understand and that seem exciting to me. And also that I think have an opportunity to return my money in a beneficial way.
I love that part of I want to invest in things that I understand. There's a whole swath of different women who understand different things. So your background, you worked at Apple, Anita Borg. What does that mean to you, like that you can truly understand?
Well, I'm finding more recently, I'm noticing that I do have an understanding of technology that not everybody has. So I am finding that to be more valuable when again, like I said, I haven't been actively investing lately, but I do still meet entrepreneurs pretty often. And I do try and connect entrepreneurs with other angels when I find somebody that, I would invest in if I was investing. So I find that I can be helpful to entrepreneurs in looking at their technology staffing needs, helping them evaluate technology providers, helping them figure out how to think about all that stuff. When I see a company, I often, or lately, I notice that I'm thinking about underlying technology. It might be like a consumer level platform that provides some kind of knowledge, but to me, there's always underlying technology, which actually could have a lot more value than the facing product, because a lot of people could use that underlying technology. So I've been thinking about that. And I notice that some of the entrepreneurs that I talk to about that, they don't understand what I'm talking about, their underlying technology. And some of them really do. And then those ones are the ones that I think will be really profitable because they understand that level. So I'm finding that I'm enjoying the technology aspect of new companies, and I'm able to bring my understanding to the conversation. So it's fun.
I love that, because that's one of the powerful things about having a group of angels like Wingpact, like the authors of Impact with Wings, is that each of you bring that industry's specific knowledge and you can make better decisions together.
Yeah, and we do help each other or invest together, or we help each other with all kinds of things in our professional lives.
Perfect. I love that. I wanted to kind of go back a little bit onto that, going out there and speaking, saying yes to things as a female angel investor that will allow for conversations to happen. And a lot of people call that the imposter syndrome. How can we as women really think about how to overcome that? How have you overcome it, or what wisdom can you impart on people?
Well, a couple things come to mind. For myself, I do have to push myself a little bit, and I actually forgot this, but my friend Tina Choi reminded me that I had told her, I made a personal policy and I told her she should do this. That's why she remembers. I never turn down a speaking engagement if it fits my schedule, obviously, but I never say, if someone asks me to speak, I actually recently write back to someone who asked me to speak and say, well, here's sort of my pros and cons that I think for that position. Do you want me? And they were like, yes, we want you, but usually I really try to just say, if they ask me, then I'm qualified, right? And then I go do it. And sometimes I bring a quite different perspective, but I just have to remind myself that that's a valuable perspective because it's different. I might not have the same experience as other people on the panel, but they're already sharing that perspective. So why do they need another person, that's done the same things as them? So I do have to push myself, and then we push each other. If I feel myself saying, well, I don't think I'm really qualified, I write to my Wingpact colleagues and I say, clearly I'm not qualified for this, so do one of you want to do it? And then I just know they're going to write back to me and say, no, you do it. You're totally qualified. We'll help you prepare. Those are my strategies.
And does writing help you prepare to be more confident in getting out there and speaking?
I think writing for me helps me solidify my ideas. If I've written an article, or I did a lot of writing in partnership with you last year because we did those monthly Google Hangouts that I then summarized. And that it helps me notice my own themes and thinking. And so then I just draw on that when I speak.
Perfect. I love that. Trying to figure out more nuggets from your book because it's so great. I'm flipping through it right now. It's like women take on the consumer space. And we've talked about that, consumer-facing technologies and toys and clothes that are solutions for moms and families. I'm seeing more innovation and more funding in that area. And are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, and I definitely know people who like to invest in that area. What I was going to suggest, Sylvia, is if you want, I can give you a little one-sentence summary of each of the different authors in the book and what their inspiring perspective is, because there's a lot in there besides just my section.
The Impact with Wing books is a collaboration and collection of stories from different women and different perspectives. And let's dive into each of those sections.
Like I said, my section was kind of about the reason this is a powerful thing for women to do is now we can create business culture, right? And business culture affects culture. So we can really change the world by working together in this way. And then my colleague, Winji Sin, was at State Street, an investment banker, and she knows about all kinds of investing. And so she wrote in her chapter about how angel investing fits into an overall portfolio. And she has a lot of ideas about how women should think about their money and their savings and their investing to, meet, of course, their material needs, but also their value system. So she comes from that kind of investment banker side. Karen Kruger is really, really passionate about supporting women entrepreneurs and mompreneurs. So she writes about like these women entrepreneurs need our support. We really have a responsibility to step up for them. And also she wants women entrepreneurs to read our book and feel encouraged that there are women investors out there stepping up for them. Hannah Yang is a crowdfunding expert. So she wrote about that and how there's, like I was talking about before, there's a range of ways to invest, and crowdfunding is a way to maybe experiment with investing directly in companies or products, or maybe an entree into looking at that space and then move to angel investing from there. And also, she feels like it's a democratizing opportunity where more people have access to that early stage money before they're even ready for angels. Let's see who I left out. Christine Lim wrote about. She interviewed actually women in the ecosystem globally and about some of these emerging women angel investor communities in other countries like Egypt and the Philippines. So she pulls that global perspective into our book. And then I think the last person is Jagruti Bika. Is very passionate about, and we had her on one of our hangouts last year. She's very passionate about kind of bringing up the next generation and how do we raise our daughters to use their money powerfully to build wealth. She's actually done investments with her 20-something-year-old daughter. She talks about that. She's an inspiring writer. So, like I said, and then we have some other contributing authors with some, more background facts to ground the readers. But it's just an interesting set of women with different areas of passion that we brought together in one book. Hopefully, we also interviewed a lot of women. We just wanted to have as many voices as possible in the book, hoping that any woman who reads it will find something in there that resonates with them, would sort of nudge them forward on thinking about how to use their financial power with higher impact.
I love that because it goes from local to national to global impact that a group of ladies can have in Silicon Valley. I know it doesn't have to be Silicon Valley, it can be anywhere, but how all of you guys got together, were able to write this book and describe how you're impacting what means something to you.
Yes.
I love that. And now that we are at 26% angel investors who are women, that's really encouraging.
Yeah, it's exciting. So we have a lot of work to do, and you're involved in it, in making sure all those women are up to speed and continuing to bring more into the community.
Perfect. And so we've talked about Pipeline. We've talked for education-wise for women is Pipeline Angels. 37 Angels is another one. CEO, Active Investing, Next Wave Ventures, and I would say Portfolio also as a platform and education learn by doing.
Yeah, both Portfolio and Next Wave are both carrying forward the model that was started with the Rising Tide, which is a learn by doing model for new women angels.
And you were part of Rising Tide Fund.
I was, yes.
How did that help you? Because we've talked a little bit during this podcast about how a group of ladies in an angel group help each other. How does a fund help angel investors become angel investors or become better angel investors?
I know you've had other podcasts on this, so I don't want to repeat too much, but those funds, at least the Rising Tide I was involved in, the follow-ons might have changed the model a little bit, but the Rising Tide idea was that each woman puts in $10,000 and then the fund is invested in 6 to 8 companies. So it would be unusual as a solo angel investor to have an opportunity to have that broad of a portfolio for that small of amount of money. So that helps with risk, and that helps. It's great if you're a new angel learning, to write a relatively small check and feel like your risk is mitigated. And then, of course, there's the highly experienced, incredibly smart lead angels in those funds that you can learn from, and they drive all the investments. So you get to learn, but the investment decisions are made by people with a ton of experience. So I think it's a win-win all around. It's a win-win for a new angel. It brings in more new angels. It's actually the companies love to have. Oftentimes these lead angels are involved in great angel groups around the country, and they bring their best deals that need a little more funding, to Rising Tide or to the follow-on. So again, it helps top off deals, and I think it's a great model. It's exciting to see.
Very exciting. And probably they're inspired by your book. So some of those angels.
And I was going to say, you asked kind of how it helped. And the network, the Rising Tide had gatherings and may still continue to have gatherings. Portfolio has gatherings. Next Wave has gatherings. And, I feel like those lead women angels, they're so accessible and they're so nice, and I'm connected to all of them, and they all know who I am. And so Wingpact was great for my network and all my association with Hera the HERA organizations has been great. And then these Learn by Doing funds have been great for my network too. And yeah.
I love just hearing about the inspiration of local groups that really inspire that larger movement of collaboration. And another thing that I wanted to kind of bring up too is that where we met. I think that that's something that I love telling that story because it really solidifies that networking really does matter even as an angel. Where are good networking opportunities for them? So a little bit of a background, but you can keep on going with the story, is that we met at the Angel Capital Association meeting here in San Diego about...
It was a couple of years ago.
I
would say 2 or 3.
Yeah. I loved meeting you. I loved saying, wow, you're from Silicon Valley. Of course, we found out that we were more connected than we thought. But I think that that's really important for people to know that there are resources out there that you can network. So loved meeting you back then.
Well, that was my first ACA summit. The sense among the women there is that the first time that the women had a presence. And then I just a month ago or so was at the annual ACA summit. It was in San Francisco this year, and I know you had to miss it. And I'm sorry you did, because I think the keynotes were actually 50% women, and the excitement was so amazing. And there were a lot of panels with women on them and topics specifically of interest to women, but also just women speaking about important angel investing things not specific to women. And, I even heard some men say, God, the women are taking over, So we weren't 50%. We were still less than 50% representative, but there's just momentum, and it's very exciting. So that's a great annual gathering, and it's getting better all the time, I would say, as women bring sort of new topics, new areas to look at to those agendas. I think we're shaking up the agendas a little bit and just making them pretty interesting.
Yeah, almost every single person on our podcast has said the Angel Capital Association is a great resource and something that they look for, for that information and then for that industry.
They have tons of online education stuff that's really good, and a lot of it is done by amazing women angel leaders too.
And those are in your book too, Suzanne, Preston, and Jerry.
Yes, Susan Preston has done a lot of training with ACA. Jerry Stengel writes for Forbes and other places. She's based in New York, and she's the one that has all the statistics all the time. Like, she's the one that I just read that 26% statistic yesterday. So she brings all that knowledge to the ecosystem.
I love that. So in the final couple of minutes, I'd always like to end the podcast with final 4 rapid fire questions. So one of them is, what's your favorite angel investing resource?
I think the Learn by Doing funds, Rising Tide, Next Wave, and Portfolio.
Perfect, because you learn from others and you learn by doing.
Yes.
I love that.
And you build a network, and yeah.
I love that. What's your favorite book?
I don't have an answer to that ready, Sylvia.
Well, of course, you wrote a book, so you're an author, and you've probably read 1,000 books.
I don't know. Right now, I'm reading this book called Snowflower and the Secret Fan by Lisa Lee. It's about a Chinese woman in the 1800s. And my son has a stack of books that his literature teacher recommended for the summer. And so my idea is actually to read a bunch of those so that we can read together and discuss. Ask me at the end of the summer what my favorite book was that I read.
Okay, I'm gonna get you to that. Who has been a major influence in your life?
The first name that came to me was Trish Costello, actually. Again, she's more in the last couple of years, when I first met her and she started talking about the history of women in women's entrepreneurship in Silicon Valley and around the country and her critical role in all of that. I was just so inspired by what so many women before us, how hard they've worked on our behalf and continue to work, and also how, open and welcoming she was to me, sort of being new in the ecosystem. She's a definite inspiration for me.
And the last one is, what does abundance mindset mean to you?
I guess I'm going to say gratitude, where we just notice all the amazing things that we have in any given moment and pay attention to that, and it grows. And I am so blessed to have women like you and my Wingpact sisters. When I count my gratitudes and my blessings, you all are top of my list.
Well, thank you. Likewise, I feel the same thing to you and to all the female angel sisters that we have out there. I feel like after going through Pipeline myself, feel like that's a sisterhood of us growing together too. I think that that's also brings us closer together, is that we are growing something pretty amazing.
Yes, it's happening. It's an exciting time in history, definitely.
Suzanne, thank you so much for letting us know how impactful the book is, Impact with Wings. And so I would love to know where I can send the listeners to get your wonderful book.
Well, it's on Amazon. If you go to Amazon and search for Impact with Wings, it comes right up. That's where you'll see it. It's got a gold wing on the cover, and that's how you recognize it.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate your time and your talent and your treasure, obviously, of investing in other entrepreneurs. So thank you again for being on the She Invests podcast.
Thank you, Sylvia. It's always a pleasure.
Great. Thank you so much. We had such an insightful podcast interview with Suzanne Andrews, angel investor and author of the book Impact with Wings. She calls herself an ecosystem builder. I love that. And what does that mean for a female angel investor on her own who wants to write that first check, or that you've written for a while? And how do you build your ecosystem better in your local community? And Suzanne gives two very simple ways of doing that. One is get out there and speak. Get on panels, talk to people, speak at the conferences in your local ecosystem, and make people learn what makes you tick and what makes you be so passionate about the investments that you're making. And number two is find other angels to support you. Suzanne is part of a angel group called Wingpact that is located in Silicon Valley. They were founded by a couple of female angel investors who had just gone through Pipeline Angels educational program. And they created a group that meets regularly to talk about investments. And then they created this book. So when they wanted to make their impact, they said, how do we do that? We want to lend a voice to female angel investors. So they published the first ever collection of stories and collections of wisdom from female angel investors. And again, the book is called Impact with Wings. And the other aspect that we talked about with Suzanne is that collaboration and community drive the growth of the female angel investment ecosystem. And it's driven so much in the last couple of years that recently in a Forbes article written by Jerry Stengel, who is one of the foremost female angel investors and authors on this topic, that in 2016, more than 1 in 4 angels were women, up to 26%. That is up from 12% in 2011. So well done, female angels that are going out there and doing things like Suzanne Andrews, writing books, writing blogs, and getting the word out there that female angels are making a difference, and we're creating a tribe that Suzanne Andrews is part of, her Wingpact group is part of, and the whole nation is benefiting economically. Thank you, Suzanne, for being on the She Invests podcast. Thank you for listening to and subscribing to the She Invests podcast. Go on over to sheinvest.com for the full show notes for this episode, as well as any resources, websites, and opportunities mentioned during the show. Sign up for the sheinvest.com newsletter to learn about events like our annual Hera Venture Summit during the month of September and our She Invests monthly investor circles. Thank you for your time, talent, and treasure.